On this day, in 1870, the government steamer Kate was on her way across Moreton Bay to St Helena Penal Establishment with a visiting justice on board in order to begin an investigation into the events of 2 days prior. Just shy of the island's third birthday as a maximum security prison, the usual order of the establishment had been thrown into chaos on a quiet Sunday afternoon at about 5:30 p.m. on the 10th of April. As the prison's gates were opened in order to serve out the evening meal, 6 prisoners rushed and overpowered the guards, successfully exiting the stockade and making a break for freedom, or as far as they could run, given their ultimate escape was still hindered by Moreton Bay. However, the motley crew of escapees were not your average breed of criminal. 4 of the men, Ross, Howard, Brownlow and Dieball, were convicted horse stuffers and thieves, whilst another, Patrick Gray, was a long-term inmate. However, the last escapee held a reputation which far exceeded that of most outlaws in early Queensland, James Alpin McPherson, or as he was better known, the Wild Scotchman. Arriving in Moreton Bay from Scotland in 1855 as a free immigrant while still a child, McPherson proved to be a very bright and willing student in his formative years. Apprenticed to John Petrie, a well-known building contractor and monumental mason, as well as Brisbane's first alderman and mayor, considered by many to be the father of Brisbane, it didn't take long for McPherson's interest to wane. Running away to pursue station work in North Queensland in 1863, he quickly found himself on the wrong side of the law after holding a shonky publican, Richard Willis, at gunpoint over an amount of missing money in March 1864. With a bounty placed on his head, McPherson quickly took to the road, travelling south to New South Wales in the hope of meeting up with and joining the renowned bushranger Ben Hall. Unable to track down Hall and his gang, McPherson decided to make a name for himself instead, a short-lived escapade that saw him arrested on the back end of a practically pre-arranged shootout with police. When the subsequent charges fell through on the unexpected death of the senior officer involved in the gun battle, McPherson was transferred back to Queensland to face the previous charge of holding up Richard Willis's hotel. Transported north first to Port Denison or Bowen to be positively identified prior to trial, the steamer Diamantina anchored for the night at Port Mackay on the way back to court in Rockhampton. Having been allowed on deck in leg irons, and whilst the guard's attention was distracted, McPherson surreptitiously slipped from the steamer and managed to swim the distance to shore without being taken by either shark or crocodile. Having found freedom after managing to shed his leg irons, the Wild Scotchman turned his focus to robbing the mail coaches between Maryborough and Port Curtis, or current-day Gladstone. With a flair for outright larrikinism, McPherson regularly taunted the authorities, even to the point of sending stolen mail cheques to Governor Bowen as a snub to his authority. Unfortunately, his bushranging days were brought to a very abrupt end in 1866 when he was recaptured and brought back before the courts. Whilst miraculously managing a verdict of not guilty for the 1864 assault of Richard Willis, McPherson was not so lucky on 2 subsequent charges of mail robbery, drawing down a sentence of 25 years penal servitude at St Helena Penal Establishment. Whilst the prisoners' escape bid on the 10th of April 1870 was successful, inasmuch as they managed to clear the stockade, their life on the outside was very short-lived. Despite fierce resistance to being restrained and returned to their cells, including one man being shot through the wrist during the struggle with the guards, initial reports incorrectly stating McPherson had suffered the wound, 5 of the 6 men were captured within 15 minutes of their breakout. The final absconder was finally captured at about 8 p.m, having been free of the cells for 2.5 hours on the island. 3 of the escapees received 25 lashes as punishment for their troubles, as they were repeat offenders, whilst McPherson and another received a month in the dark cells or solitary confinement. After his failed attempt at freedom, Macpherson settled down and became a model prisoner, serving only 8 of his 25 years sentence. Released in late 1874 on the back end of a public petition co-signed by a number of parliamentary members of both houses, James Macpherson returned to the bush and took up droving and managing stations. He would die in Burketown at the age of 53 in 1895 as a result of being thrown from his horse whilst on the way home from an old friend's funeral.